History books often fixate on the dramatic image of barbarians storming the gates of Rome. In reality, that arrival was merely the final blow to a failing foundation. A hidden financial rot had consumed the empire's structural integrity for over a century. For centuries, that foundation was the silver denarius. First minted around 211 BC, this coin was nearly pure silver. It was a tangible asset that held physical weight, trusted by soldiers and merchants from the borders of Britain to the edge of the East. The strength of the empire was tied to the purity of this metal. Because each coin contained a specific amount of silver, the Roman people held unwavering confidence in the money they used to store their life's work. By the 2nd century AD, the costs of maintaining that strength reached a breaking point. The treasury had to fund thousands of miles of roads and hundreds of thousands of legionaries simultaneously. Military expenses were consistently outstripping the empire's tax revenue. Emperors faced a dangerous political choice. Directly increasing the tax burden on a restless population was a reliable way to trigger a revolt, making it a strategy of last resort for any ruler who wanted to keep their head. Instead of public tax hikes, they turned to a hidden workaround to expand the treasury: debasement. The state reduced the silver content in each coin, mixing in cheaper bronze while keeping the face value the same. This graph shows how striking more coins from the same silver artificially multiplied the state's money supply. Because the new coins initially looked and felt like the old ones, the Roman public failed to notice the change. The government successfully extracted value from every transaction in the empire, while the people believed their wealth remained intact. This process operates as a silent tax. By expanding the money volume while lowering its intrinsic value, the state quietly transfers purchasing power from its citizens' savings directly into imperial coffers. We can track this decline through the coins themselves. During the reign of Augustus, at the height of Roman stability, the denarius was roughly 95% pure silver, a reliable anchor for the entire Mediterranean economy. By the time of Emperor Caracalla in the early 3rd century, that purity had been slashed to roughly 50% silver. The government was now effectively half-funding its military through the erosion of its own currency. Under Emperor Gallienus, the decline hit zero. The denarius contained less than 5% silver. The once mighty coin had been reduced to a bronze disc with a thin silver wash that wore off almost immediately in circulation. Once the silver wash disappeared, the illusion was gone. The Roman people could see the fraud in the palms of their hands, and the confidence that had held the financial system together for centuries finally shattered. Prices responded to the worthlessness of the money. Since a coin was no longer anchored by silver, merchants demanded significantly more of them for basic goods. A single measure of wheat that once cost 1 denarius began to cost dozens, then hundreds. When the trust in a currency dies, the stability of the citizen dies with it. The erosion of the denarius destroyed the purchasing power of the Roman middle class, leaving them with bags of metal that held no real value. Society began to unravel as the money failed. Soldiers, realizing their pay was worthless, demanded constant raises. Trade networks stopped functioning as merchants refused the debased coins, forcing the economy to move backward toward primitive barter. In 301 AD, Emperor Diocletian attempted to solve the crisis by decree. His edict on maximum prices legally capped the cost of over 1,000 goods, making it a capital crime for anyone to raise prices to match the currency's decline. The edict was a disaster. Because no law can force value onto a broken coin, official markets emptied, and the entire Roman economy moved to the black market. Trade in the light of day became impossible. History shows that political mandates are powerless against economic reality. When a government intentionally hollows out its currency, price controls cannot stop the inevitable collapse of the system. Rome was simply the first large-scale iteration of this sequence. Since then, the same mechanical laws have triggered in every era where governments tried to spend more than they produced. In 1923, Weimar Germany attempted to print its way out of war debts. As the supply of paper marks expanded without limit, the currency's value vanished. By that fall, a single loaf of bread cost over 200 billion marks. This hyperinflation effectively liquidated the savings of the entire nation. The resulting despair wiped out the life's work of the elderly and created the chaos that fueled the rise of political extremism. Zimbabwe repeated the process in 2008. To cover massive government deficits, the printing presses ran until prices were doubling every single day. The resulting $100 trillion note serves as a monument to the end of currency trust. In both cases, the divide was clear. The elite who owned land and resources protected their wealth, while those who relied on government-issued wages were left with nothing but piles of colorful, useless paper. The Roman collapse was not a one-time anomaly. It is a predictable outcome. When a state chooses to monetize its debt by rapidly expanding the money supply, the currency inevitably loses its ability to function as a store of value. In 1971, the United States entered the same cycle. President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility into gold, severing the final link between the world's primary currency and a physical, finite anchor. This established the modern system of fiat currency, money that is backed by nothing but a government's promise. Without the physical constraints of gold or silver, there is no limit to how much money a central bank can create. This creates an environment where inflation can be easily masked. By injecting new money into the financial system, governments can boost stock prices and nominal wages, creating the appearance of a booming economy. But when you find that your record-high paycheck buys less food and housing than it did 5 years ago, you are seeing the loss of purchasing power that growth figures hide. The modern version of the Roman silver wash is the illusion of a stable price tag. While a dollar bill looks unchanged, its value is being hollowed out just as surely as the denarius was 17 centuries ago. True wealth exists in tangible, productive assets that cannot be printed or debased. Rome's failure reminds us that when a society ignores the fragility of its money, it eventually loses the trust required to survive. Once that trust is gone, the collapse is not